I had been transmigrated into a book, a trashy, melodramatic soap opera of a novel titled The Four Heiresses and the Maid's Son. I was now Leo Sterling, the heir to the Sterling global empire, a man who, in the original plot, was a spineless doormat who died a pathetic death. Most people know how these stories go. Leo's life was a sick joke. His parents had arranged for him to marry one of four breathtakingly beautiful heiresses, with the final choice to be made at his debutante gala. But everything changed when a calculating live-in maid arrived with her 3 children. The Miller family lived off the Sterling's wealth while systematically framing Leo for every conceivable sin. They painted the maid's son, Caleb Miller, as a misunderstood martyr, while Leo was branded a privileged, abusive bully. The original Leo was a silent fool. He harbored a naive belief that his childhood sweethearts would eventually see the truth, so he never fought back. Slowly, the 4 women grew disgusted with him. In the end, Caleb drove a luxury car bought for him by those very 4 women and ran Leo down in the street. It wasn't until Leo's parents uncovered the truth that the women, consumed by hollow, too late regret, took their own lives. Belated affection is cheaper than dirt, I muttered to myself with a cold smirk. I had no intention of being a martyr. What was mine would stay mine. My gaze hardened. Now that I'm here, the party's over for the Millers. A burst of laughter echoed from downstairs. I walked to the window and looked down at the living room. It was a picture of domestic bliss. Caleb Miller was at the center of a circle formed by my 4 fiancées and his 2 sisters. Candles flickered on a towering artisanal cake while his mother, the maid, stood by with a syrupy, self-satisfied smile. Today was Caleb's birthday. In the original timeline, this was the day Caleb framed Leo for ruining the party, further alienating the girls. I felt a chill of mockery dance in my eyes as I turned and headed downstairs. "Caleb, honey, make a wish," Victoria Montgomery said softly. As the eldest and most influential of the 4 heiresses, her word carried weight. Right now, her eyes were filled with nothing but pity for Caleb. "Yeah, come on, Caleb. Tell us what you want and we'll buy it for you," Chloe Bennett added, her bubbly personality on full display as she clutched a designer gift box. Grace Hawthorne didn't speak, but she watched Caleb with a gentle, nurturing gaze, quietly smoothing a wrinkle in his shirt. Skylar Frost stood slightly apart, her expression icy as always. Yet, there was a flicker of uncharacteristic indulgence in her eyes. Caleb's 2 sisters were even more dramatic. One fixed his hair, while the other snapped photos on her iPhone, chirping, "Our brother is the handsomest guy in the world." Mrs. Miller, the maid, nodded with a fake tear in her eye. "Our Caleb has had such a hard life to have such wonderful girls care for him. It's a blessing." Caleb closed his eyes, hands clasped, his voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. "I just wish that you all will always protect me and love me. That will never be apart." Just as he leaned in to blow out the candles, I stepped into the circle. With one sharp whoosh, I blew them out myself. The room went silent. They stared at me, stunned. I dragged a finger through the frosting, tasted it, and grimaced. I spat it onto the floor, disgusting. Before anyone could speak, I backhanded the cake. The 12-tier tower collapsed, splattering cream and expensive fruit over everyone's designer outfits. "Now, have you lost your mind?" Victoria was the first to snap, her face red with fury. "Master Leo, what are you doing?" Mrs. Miller cried, rushing forward to clean the mess. "We spent all afternoon on this." Caleb's eldest sister shrieked. "You did that on purpose. It's Caleb's only birthday." I ignored them. I walked over to the dining table, which was laden with delicacies prepared by the Michelin star chef I paid for. I picked up a fork and took a bite of the Wagyu beef. These people didn't deserve to breathe the same air as this food, let alone eat it. Without looking back, I said to the maid, "From now on, only the masters of this house sit at this table. Learn your place." "Leo, you're going too far," Chloe said, her face flushed with anger. "What did Caleb ever do to you? You're always targeting him." "Exactly," Grace added, finding her courage. "Caleb is so vulnerable. How can you be so cruel?" Skylar frowned. her voice a sharp blade of judgment. You need to stop this, or we will never forgive you. Seeing his opening, Caleb switched to victim mode instantly. His eyes turned red, and he dropped his knees with a heavy thud. Tears streamed down his face like a broken faucet. Master Leo, I know I shouldn't have my birthday here. I shouldn't take up your space, but I grew up without a father. My mom worked so hard to raise me alone. I just want a nice day. I am sorry. Please don't be mad. My family and I will leave right now. Even if we starve on the streets, we won't step foot in the Sterling mansion again. This pathetic display was like gasoline on the fire of the women's savior complexes. Victoria pointed a finger at my face. Look at what you've done. You've pushed him to his knees. Why do you have to be such a bully? I'm a bully? I asked calmly. I'm eating dinner in my own house and telling the help's kids they aren't invited to the table. That's bullying now? You know what you've been doing, Caleb's second sister chimed in. We've all seen it. You hate seeing him happy. Then prove it, Chloe shouted. Prove you haven't been bullying him. Fine, I said, my lips curling into a sharp smile. I looked at the baseball bat leaning in the corner of the room. The original Leo was framed because he was a silent coward who couldn't defend himself. I wasn't him. I wasn't a beta who let people walk over him. A man like that deserves his fate, but I wasn't going to share it. I walked over, picked up the bat, and weighed in my hand. Amidst their shocked gasps, I walked toward Caleb. Master Leo, no. The maid screamed, trying to intervene, but my security team stepped in her way. The Sterling guards were supposed to follow my orders, but the original Leo had been too weak to ever use them. The tears on Caleb's face froze. Terror flickered in his eyes, but he kept up the act. Master Leo, I am sorry. Please be gentle. Even as he whimpered, his eyes held a hidden spark of defiance. He didn't believe the cowardly air would actually swing. Crack! The bat connected with Caleb's face with a sickening thud. The force sent him spinning backward onto the floor. Ah! Caleb shrieked, clutching his mouth. He curled into a ball, rolling on the floor as several bloody teeth skittered across the hardwood. I didn't stop. I brought the bat down again and again. I wasn't doing this for the original Leo. I was doing it because this soap opera logic was giving me a headache. You love playing the victim? Whack. You love framing people? Whack. You spend my money and then spit on my name? Whack. The room was paralyzed. The only sound were Caleb's muffled screams and the heavy rhythmic thud of the bat hitting flesh. No one dared to breathe. They had never seen me like this. The doormat was gone, replaced by someone whose gaze made their blood run cold. Only when the bat was slightly dented and stained did I stop. I tossed it aside and took a breath. Caleb lay a heap, barely moaning. I looked down at him and sneered. There's your proof. If I want to hurt a piece of trash like this, I'll do it in broad daylight. Why would I ever bother doing it in secret? Victoria and the others finally snapped out of their trance. They rushed to help him. Caleb, oh my God, get him to a hospital. Who dares to move? I roared. I grabbed a nearby mahogany chair and smashed it at their feet. The legs shattered upon impact. They froze, trembling. My eyes swept over them, finally landing on my 4 fiancés. Anyone who tries to help him is kicked out of the Sterling estate tonight. I guarantee you won't find a single door open to you in all of New York. Not even for a crust of bread. My voice was ice. They could see I wasn't joking. These socialites had never faced real consequences. They stood there shaking, watching Caleb bleed out on the floor, too terrified to move. For the first time, I actually looked at the 4 of them. They were, as the book described, masterpieces of nature. Victoria was elegant and poised. Chloe was bright and spirited. Grace was soft and serene. Skylar was a chilling beauty. It was a shame their brains were currently being bypassed by their bleeding hearts. I turned my gaze to the maid and her daughters. They were white with shock. I looked back at the fiancés, my voice now calm but commanding. Since you're my fiancés, it's time you started acting like it. You've forgotten your obligations. Victoria, you're staying with me tonight for the rest of the week. The 3 of you will rotate. 1 night each. What? The room gasped. Before anyone else could speak, Caleb's eldest sister shrieked. You want us to serve you? To sleep with you? I mean, my sister and I, but even my mother, you're sick. I won't let you have me that easily. She actually stomped her foot in a theatrical way. It was nauseating. Slap. I hit her so hard her lips split instantly. Wake the hell up. What are you even imagining? I looked at her bloated, arrogant face with pure disgust. When I say service, I'm talking about my 4 beautiful fiancées. What are you pieces of garbage talking about? Do you think I don't need 3 days a week to rest from them? I turned to the guards at the door. These 3 women. Yours now. My only requirement. Keep them busy. Very busy. The guards looked at each other, hesitant. Sir, do we have to? Of course, I nodded. They looked relieved. Thank you, sir. But if you refuse, I interrupted. You're fired. Leave the estate. The guard's smiles vanished. They looked at the maid and her daughters, then back at me. With a resigned sigh, they stepped forward, grabbed the hysterical women, and dragged them out. The living room finally went quiet, leaving only me, the 4 aces, and the dying Caleb on the floor. My eyes fell back on Victoria Montgomery. Didn't you hear me? Victoria was still in shock. Chloe was the one who found her voice, though it was trembling. You can't do this. The agreement was, you choose one of us for marriage. If you take all of us, that's not legal. That's... I reached out and stroked her cheek. Her skin was like silk. I gave her a dark, wicked smile. Honey, you're overthinking it. If I sleep with all of you, but marry none of you, it's not big. It's just a very busy social calendar. Without another word, I stepped toward Victoria. Before she could react, I swept her up in a bridal carry. Leo, put me down. We have a contract. She struggled, her small fists thumping weakly against my chest. I looked down at her with a warning in my eyes. Behave, or I'll handle you right here on the rug. She went stiff, her face flushing crimson. She went quiet as I carried her upstairs toward the master suite. Chloe, Grace, and Skylar stood in the wreckage of the party, their expressions a chaotic mix of fear, confusion, and something else they couldn't quite name. I glanced back at them over my shoulder. Chloe, tomorrow. Grace the day after. Skylar following her. Be ready, or things will get much, much worse for everyone involved. I kicked the bedroom door open and locked it behind me. Victoria's protest died in her throat as I dropped her onto the soft, oversized bed. Her struggles were nothing against my strength. I pulled off my tie, my gaze darkening with a mix of aggression and intent. Remember this, Victoria. You're a sterling fiancé. In this life, you belong to me, body and soul. That night, Victoria went from resistance to exhaustion. By the time it was over, her eyes were red from crying, but she didn't say another word of protest. I wiped a tear from her eye and pinched her perfect cheek. See, if you'd just been this obedient from the start, we could have skipped the drama. Victoria turned her head away, her ears burning red, but she quietly shifted closer to me in the dark. The next morning, I woke up to find Victoria sitting on the edge of the bed, watching me with a complicated expression. Have you figured out yet? I asked. She shook her head, then nodded slowly. I don't know, but I'll do what you said. We'll take turns. She knew the sterling influence was too vast to fight. Resistance would only bring more pain, and deep down, she wanted to see if the new Leo was real. I nodded, satisfied. I walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. Below, the butler was organizing the cleanup of the living room. Caleb Miller was gone, likely hauled off by the guards. Go down and get some breakfast, I said. As we entered the dining room, the other 3 were already there, looking restless. The spread was lavish, but no one had an appetite. I ate slowly, then looked at the butler. Where's Caleb, sir? The butler stepped forward. Last night, while the guards were occupied, the maid managed to sneak back and move him. We aren't sure where they are. They ran away. I raised an eyebrow, unfazed. They won't go far. They've tasted a good life. They won't go back to being poor. They'll be back to try one last time. Sure enough, by noon, the maid returned with a battered, limping Caleb. They burst into the living room. Leo Sterling, come out here, the maid screamed. What did you do to my daughters? Give them back. Caleb wailed along with her. Master Leo, I'm sorry. Just let my family go. My mother is old. She can't take this. My sisters are innocent. I came down the stairs, watching the performance. They were good. One victim, one grieving mother. It was their classic routine. I watched them like I was watching a movie. Innocent, you spend my money. Frame me for crimes. And now you have the nerve to say innocent. We didn't. The two daughters ran in, disheveled and weeping, throwing themselves at their mother. He's a monster. He gave us to the guards. He's the evil one. Oh, I laughed. I am Eve. Let's talk about the inventory you've been taking from this house. The sheer value of the items you've stolen qualifies as grand larceny. If you don't believe me, use your phones. Look up the prison sentence for theft, over $1 million. If you keep lying, I'll call the DA myself. The maid's face went white. She fumbled with her phone, her eyes widening as she read the statutes. Her hand shook until the phone clattered to the floor. Victoria and the others looked at her, doubt finally creeping into their minds. You're lying. We didn't steal. The girls let us use those things. Caleb shouted, try to regain control. The maid looked at her son as if he were a lifeline. Is that so? I turned to the butler. Bring up the security feed from the study. The butler tapped his tablet. The screen clearly showed the maid sneaking into the study, opening a drawer, and sliding a heavy emerald bracelet into her bag. That was my mother's heirloom intended for my future bride, I said coldly. Its value is worth more than your family's entire lives. Since I hadn't chosen a wife yet, I doubt this forgave you permission to take it. I glanced at the heiresses. They quickly looked away, unable to meet my eyes. The Millers were speechless. Caleb's eyes darted around before he dropped back into his pity act. Master Leo, it's my fault. I made my mom do it. I was desperate. I have a medical condition. I needed the money for treatment. Don't blame her. Blame me. Caleb, you're sick? Chloe asked, her saint instincts kicking in. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Maybe Leo can help. You wouldn't just watch you suffer, right? Damn it. These women were gorgeous, but their savior complexes were a terminal illness. You want to be a saint, Fina? But you do it on my terms. Fine, I said. The Millers froze. Did the old Leo just come back? Guards, I snapped. Take Caleb to the Sterling private hospital. Take his mother and sisters for testing. Once the match is confirmed, we're doing a transplant. The Millers were horrified. The guards grabbed Caleb as he started screaming. Wait, no, I didn't say it was my kidneys. I just meant my stomach was upset. It's not that serious. Shut up, I growled, channeling my inner tyrant. I don't care what you think. I think you need a transplant. If I say you're going under the knife, you're going under the knife. What are you waiting for? Lunch. I barked to the guards. Yes, sir. They dragged the screaming family out. Leo, you'll pay for this. The maid's voice echoed as they were hauled away. Master, please. We can serve you too. The sisters cried out, a last-ditch effort. I waved them off with total indifference. I'm a man of taste. I don't eat every scrap thrown my way. With them gone, the silence in the hall was heavy. I could hear the rapid breathing of the four women next to me. They were terrified, looking at each other like deer in headlights. I sat down next to Chloe. She jumped as if she'd been shocked, a forced smile plastered on her face. I'm full. You guys eat. She tried to bolt, but I caught her wrist. What's the rush? It's your turn today. We're going to the office first. Chloe's face turned bright red. She looked panicked, but she eventually nodded. Okay. By 10 a.m., I was in my penthouse office. Chloe walked in with a coffee, her movements cautious. Here's your coffee, Leo. I took a sip. It was perfect. The original Leo never got this kind of treatment, but then again, he was a beta who deserved his lot. I noticed she was lingering. Speak, the maid called. Chloe whispered, they don't want to do the surgery. Don't worry, I said. The hospital knows what to do. You're dismissed. She was smart enough not to push it. I had already given the doctor specific instructions. Test all three women. Over the next few days, rejection complications would magically occur. We'd cycle through them until each of them had contributed something to Caleb's health. By the time I was done, none of them would be quite whole again. That night, Chloe came to my room of her own accord. She was wearing silk lingerie and a perfume that smelled of jasmine. When I woke up the next day, my back was a little sore. I had been pushing myself a bit too hard lately. I needed to balance my duties with the actual business empire. Grace was the most gentle of the four, the ideal partner in most men's eyes. As I headed down the stairs, I saw her peeking up from the foyer. When she saw me, she hurried back to the table. Chloe was still asleep upstairs. The breakfast spread was incredible. Grace placed a bowl of soup in front of me. It's the perfect temperature. Drink up. I looked at her. Her long lashes fluttered like a nervous bird's wings. It's exactly how I like it, I said. Her ears turned pink. If you like it, I'll make it for you every day. Every day. I leaned in and tilted her chin up. Even the best things get boring if you have them every day. I like to keep the menu varied. She understood the double meaning immediately. Her face turned cherry red, but she didn't pull away. Good. I had a business trip to attend to, so I took her along as my assistant. By day, she was the perfect professional. By night, she was even better. A few days later, it was Skylar's turn. She was different, cold as a mountain glacier, but impeccably efficient. I took her to a high-stakes corporate gala in her black floor-length gown. She was lethal. She navigated the room with grace, blocked unwanted solicitors, and even helped me close a multi-million-dollar merger without breaking a sweat. As we got into the limo afterward, I smirked. I didn't know you had that in you. Skylar looked down, a rare softness in her voice. The Sterling family has looked after us for years. Your business is my business. The night was finally lowering her armor. That night, she was a completely different person, wild and uninhibited. By the time I had all four of them fully subdued, the butler reported that the Miller family had been discharged from the hospital. They were currently kneeling at the estate gates, begging for their jobs back. I laughed. They really don't know when to quit. If they want to crawl into their graves, I'll help them. If they had just run away, I might have let them live. But they couldn't give up the dream. I had the guards bring them in. They were pale, sickly, and clutching their sides. You want to work? Fine, I said, leaning back on the sofa. The stables need cleaning, the pool needs scrubbing, and the back acreage needs weeding. 12-hour shifts, 1 minute short, and you don't eat. They looked horrified. Caleb was shaking with rage, but his mother held him back. Thank you, Master Leo. We'll do it. We'll do it. She was an old fox. She thought she could use the women's pity to work her way back in, but I didn't give her the chance. I had guards watch them 24/7. When they weren't working, they were locked in the cramped servants' quarters. They never even got a glimpse of the four heresies. Days turned into weeks. The heavy labor broke them. The maid was hunched over. The daughters grew gaunt. They even tried to seduce me again, but I sent them away. They weren't even attractive anymore. One night, the Millers met in secret. They were desperate. They decided to take a gamble. Little did they know, every word was being recorded by my surveillance team. They bought a sedative and bribed a guard who was actually reporting to me. They thought they were the chosen ones, finally overcoming their trials. In the dead of night, they crept out of their quarters, clutching a bottle of liquid sedative. Their plan was simple. Drug me, let Caleb be with the four heresies, and then claim it was all Leo's drunken fault. They reached the master bedroom. Suddenly, the hallway lights flared to life. I was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. A bit late for a stroll, isn't it? The four of them froze. The bottle clattered to the floor. Master Leo, we brought you a midnight snack, the maid stammered. A snack? I picked up the bottle. This is the snack. Caleb tried to snatch it. Yes, but you've probably eaten, so we'll just go. Don't be silly, I said, snapping my fingers. The guards tackled them instantly. I hate waste. Feed it to them. Despite their screams, the guards forced the liquid down their throats. Then I opened a laptop and played the recordings of their meeting. Their plan to ruin me, to have Caleb impregnate the heresies, and eventually seize the Sterling fortune. Then I played the older tapes, the ones showing Caleb smashing vases and blaming Leo or throwing himself down the stairs to frame him. The four heresies, woken by the noise, stood in the hallway, watching the screens. They were shaking with rage. You ungrateful leeches. Victoria screamed. We gave you everything, and you planned this. I was blind. Chloe was sobbing with anger. Leo, they can't stay. They're monsters. Even Grace looked at them with pure revulsion. Skylar, ever the pragmatist, stepped forward. The girls are right. Let me handle them. I'll make sure they never bother us again. I smiled. The original plot had these women killing the Millers and then themselves. What a waste. I'm a law-abiding citizen, I said smoothly. But there are ways to handle this. Lock them up. We proceed as planned tomorrow. The maid panicked. No, Caleb drank that stuff. You can't lock us together. Not with him like that. I ignored her. The next night, the four of them were bundled onto a speedboat and taken into international waters. The wind was howling. The Millers, broken and bleeding, looked out at the dark horizon. They loved playing the victim. Now, they would be real victims. The guards threw them overboard. Their screams were quickly drowned out by the waves and the silent dark shapes circling in the water. Meanwhile, I was on my private jet sipping champagne with four of the most beautiful women in the world. We were starting a global tour, New York to Paris, Tokyo to the Mediterranean. Victoria was more radiant than ever. Chloe was clinging to my arm. Grace was making sure my glass was full. And Skylar was looking at me with a smile that finally reached her eyes. The plane climbed through the clouds, bathed in the golden light of the rising sun. My life was finally beginning. Story complete.